Who among us doesn't love a happy ending? As long as it feels earned and appropriate for the story, it's great to see the heroes triumph over the villain, which in turn sends popcorn-gobbling audiences home with a smile on their faces. But sometimes things aren't quite that simple, and what's framed as a happy ending with jaunty music and a fanfare celebration is actually anything but. There are even some cases where a sad ending can be made even darker the more time you spend thinking about it. So with that said, let's get sad, shall we? I'm Ewan, you're watching Whatculture, and here at Movie Endings Way Darker Than You Realize. Valentine's signal killed millions worldwide. Kingsman, the Secret Service. The villain of the first Kingsman movie, Samuel Jackson's Richmond Valentine, plans to control the world by giving free SIM cards to every human being on Earth. The catch? Well, he can transmit a signal that turns anyone with one of those SIM cards murderously violent, all in an attempt to control overpopulation and prevent global warming. And indeed, Valentine activates the signal for a brief period during the movie's third act, with director Matthew Vaughn briefly showing scenes of chaos unfolding around the world as people suddenly start killing each other. Yet after Valentine is killed at film's end, the masses of human carnage which unfolded while the signal was active are oddly glossed over. It's reasonable to assume that millions of people, especially the young, elderly, and physically vulnerable, would have died in droves, severely impacting the population of the next generation in particular. And this is without even considering that numerous world leaders in Valentine's employ had their heads exploded in the climax, likely creating at least a couple of teeny tiny power vacuums in countries around the world.
Film and TV is cool, but you know what else is cool? Protecting your privacy online. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and get up to 76% off a 2-year NordVPN plan, plus 3 months free if you sign up today. I'd make that deal. Damn good deal.
Coulter hijacked a guy's body. Source code. A surface-level reading of source code's ending says that it's a happy one, at least for protagonist Captain Calder Stevens, played in the film by Jake Gyllenhaal, who we all dearly love. Stevens eventually learns that he was gravely wounded in action and is being kept on life support to test out the experimental past reconstructuring source code tech. At the end of the film, however, one of the officers overseeing the quote-unquote simulation, Captain Goodwin, agrees to terminate his life support after one final trip back into the source code. While the termination seemingly freezes Coulter in time with his love interest Christina, a moment later, the scene unfreezes, revealing that the source code wasn't generating simulations, but actually creating parallel universes? And so Coulter is free to live a full life with Christina in this newly created reality, with a fully functioning body no less. Except it's important to remember that anytime Coulter entered the source code, he was inserted into the body of a schoolteacher named Sean Fentress, effectively hijacking it. And so, though this outcome is a fortuitous one for Coulter, he's basically stolen the body of another human being, a fact we're slightly reminded of in the film's ending, when Sean's reflection can be seen in front of Coulter. As if Sean's consciousness being obliterated wasn't bad enough, his family and friends will have to deal with him having no memory of them whatsoever. Marty's brain struggles to accept his new past. Back to the Future. Back to the Future's ending sees Marty McFly ensure that his parents do indeed get together in 1955, thereby securing his own existence. However, doing so also ends up changing his present of 1985. At the start of Robert Zemeckis' film, Marty's father George is cowardly and timid, his mother Lorraine is not doing great, and his siblings have really failed to do anything with their lives. But at the end, their fates have been changed. George is a successful sci-fi author and an assertive human being. Lorraine is happy and healthy, and his siblings are doing well for themselves too. Basically, Marty's entire life up to this point has been fundamentally altered, and while the film keeps it ambiguous precisely how Marty's memories will now work, there are basically 2 options we have to work with here. Number 1. Marty either has no memory of his present and has to awkwardly wing it for the rest of his life, or number 2. His older memories will slowly fade in over time, given that the movie confirms that aspects of the present will slowly update after the past is changed, like with Marty's photo of his family. Either way, it's going to be a tough period of adjustment, having no memory of a childhood the rest of his family vividly remembers, or having to experience his memories being gradually reshaped over time, which kind of sounds like a bit of a nightmare. The whole movie is Walker's dying dream, point blank. Obligatory one of Ewan's fave movies entry here, John Borman's Point Blank was the director's 1967 masterpiece, an ethereal, dreamlike descent into the California underworld with a career best Lee Marvin as our guide. The film was adapted from Richard Stark / Donald Westlake's Parker novels, namely The Hunter. Side note, if you enjoy comics too, the late great Darwin Cook adapted Stark's Parker novels in the 2010s, and they are all gorgeous and well worth checking out. But yeah, Point Blank, and spoiler alert of course if you have not seen the film already, and please do go do that if you haven't because it's amazing. The film stars Marvin as Walker, a wronged professional criminal with a ruthless mean streak who sets out to take revenge on those who double-crossed him and stole his score. Marvin's character drifts through California ran through a pop art lens, systematically taking down those who wanted him to stay dead. The film ends with Walker at the same place he was originally left for dead at, Alcatraz Island, fading into the darkness to avoid one final double cross. But it's also possible that Walker could be fading out of existence altogether. Several reads of Point Blank, the most notable posited by critic David Thompson, have suggested that the film is really Walker's dying fantasy, a series of visions promising revenge before he succumbs to his wounds on Alcatraz in the encounter we see at the beginning of the film. It's also possible to look at Walker as something of a spectre. While Point Blank's supernatural elements aren't explicitly telegraphed, and it's perfectly acceptable to read the film more literally as Walker's actual revenge, Borman himself did say that it's possible for Walker to be seen as a, quote, ghost or shadow. Whichever read you have of Point Blank, its ending is still devastatingly good. Ewoks eat the Stormtroopers, Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Much as Episode 6 of Star Wars ends the original trilogy on a triumphant note, the galaxy-wide celebration is hampered somewhat by the sly implication of human eating. Return of the Jedi introduced fans to the adorable, fuzzy Ewoks, who are nevertheless shown to be carnivorous given that they very nearly end up eating Luke, Han, and Chewbacca upon first crossing paths with them. And while they ultimately all work together to fight the Empire and celebrate it in unison at the end, the Ewoks almost certainly didn't afford the same quarter to the Stormtroopers they captured during the Battle of Endor. But yeah, given that we can even see an Ewok drumming on some Stormtrooper helmets right at the end of the film, it seems pretty cut and dry that they spit roasted and ate their defeated foes. Barry is trapped in the Schumacherverse, The Flash. The Flash delivers one of the most genuinely surprising WTF endings in recent memory, when Barry Allen seemingly returns to the present, only to meet up with Bruce Wayne and discover that he's not played by Ben Affleck, but by George Clooney. Oh, what a zinger. While on the face of it, this might seem like a mere goofy, nonsensical gag on which to end the film, a head-scratching closing moment to set up a sequel that will never arrive. Good going yet again, Warner Brothers. It's actually a sort of twisted, ironic fate for this incarnation of the Flash. Just think about it. Barry has effectively been banished to the Schumacherverse of Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. I will go on the record multiple times to defend those movies, but that is not where Barry belongs. His timeline is still balked in short, and he must now presumably annoy yet another incarnation of Batman in a bid to fix what he's broken. Here's hoping that Arnie's Mr. Freeze iced him in like 5 seconds flat. Kong's corpse becomes an attraction. King Kong. No matter which version of King Kong you watch, they typically end with the death of Kong at the hands of the military. And while the story seemingly ends there, Joe DeVito's sequel novel, Kong, King of Skull Island, released shortly before Peter Jackson's 2005 remake, reveals a bleak postscript addendum to Kong's demise. The novel's most disturbing revelation? Well, after Kong was shot by the military and fell to his death, his gigantic corpse was collected and became an exhibit at the Museum of Natural History, with patrons paying top dollar to view his skeleton, posed exotically in combat with a dinosaur. There's a tragic irony to this outcome for Kong, that even in death, the world wasn't done with him. His remains were commodified long after he was gone. Gentrification still wins, batteries not included. You have to give the filmmakers behind Batteries Not Included some credit. Back in 1987, they managed to address the issue of gentrification in a film aimed squarely at kids. The plot centers around an impoverished New York neighborhood where an apartment building and cafe operated by the Rileys is under threat of demolition by nasty property developers. With the Rileys and some of their tenants refusing to move, the developers ramp up their threats, until they are visited by mechanical creatures resembling flying saucers, dubbed the Fix-Its, which promptly start repairing the run-down building. All the same, an arson attack causes the building to be destroyed near the film's end, before a fleet of the Fix-Its returns and rebuilds the entire apartment block to a better state than ever before. This results in the building being spared by the developers, with the final shot taking place years later and showing the block nestled safely between the developers' new fancy high-rises. Though the cafe is said to benefit from the influx of new people to the area, everything we know about gentrification says this won't be a good thing for the Rileys, their tenants, or really any non-rich person living in the vicinity. The property developments would end up raising the value of the surrounding area enough that it would almost certainly price the Rileys and their tenants out of the area on a long enough timeline. The Rileys would have to pay more property tax, slightly forcing them to raise their tenants' rent, while the cost of everything in the area would also skyrocket, ensuring that affordable living quickly became anything but. As a closing shot, it's a triumphant image of defiance, but one grimly undone by cold, hard reality.